This is GabNet, the Great American Broadcast Network, now in its 7th year. Talk like you've never heard it before.
Hey everybody! Yes, this is Alex, and this is the Ramble, and we go until midnight tonight in the East Coast of the United States. From the city so nice, we named it twice, New York, New York. Start spreading the news. I'm leaving today. No, I'm not actually. I'm sticking around. I'll tell you in a moment why. We were off for the last couple of nights, and we are sorry that we were. Hopefully next week we'll do 3 nights. I kind of like just doing this one night, and the Monday thing. But it's up to you. It's up to you guys. It's up to whether we get the kind of response on this program that we really would like to get. So it's up to you to if I don't get enough people calling this program, then obviously there's no reason for me to keep doing it, right? On at least the schedule that I'm doing now. So if I do it one day a week, everybody will have a little more of a, what can we call it? I don't know. They will love the show more. I don't know. Anyway, hey, listen, we got a guest tonight. Our guest, of course, is a guy that we have on quite often here. And we usually just put him on because he disagrees with almost everything I say, and so that makes for more interesting programming than, well, look at him. Here he is, ladies and gentlemen. Oops. Oh, what was that?
I don't know.
Wait a minute. It's coming back at me. There's something on your end that's coming back at me. Oh, boy. See, wouldn't you know we've been off for several nights. Wait a minute.
It says original sound on. I'll turn that off. How's that?
Let me see. There we go.
Right.
I think it's better.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Let me turn this down.
Yeah. What did you put in your new board or something?
No, I haven't touched it yet.
Oh, well, then I don't know what that was, but that's Phil Meyer, ladies and gentlemen. It says so right there if you can't read. That's what it says.
All right. Hey, you've been gone for a couple of days. You've been in the court system. Tell us, are you going to be living on a subway grate, or should I be looking for you in one of these tents?
All of the above.
Yeah. Well, why don't you fill us in on what happened? Well,
let me explain to people. We should go back to the very beginning. Okay. Now, when I say we'll go back to the very beginning of this story, you would think that it goes back, just a few years or maybe a few months or whatever. But no, we moved into this apartment slightly over 10 years ago. It's a long time, right? That's a decade that we've lived in this apartment. And we love this apartment, and it's a great little apartment. One thing led to another. And about year 3, towards the end of our first lease, something happened. And what happened basically was that we were, there was a whole bunch of problems that started to occur. And I don't want to get too deeply into it because it could get very boring. But the sum total of it is that the apartment was rented to us by a guy who didn't own the apartment. He simply rented it like anybody else and was subletting it to us at double the amount of money that he was paying rent on it. Does that make sense? And Here in New York, if you have a rent-stabilized apartment and you want to sublet it, you can only do it for 2 years, and you can't charge 1 penny more than you're already paying for rent, except for maybe 10% if there's furniture involved. Okay? But he was charging us double that. We were paying $4,200 a month. And at that time, we felt we could really afford it, so we did it. What?
And it was a deal at that price.
At that price, what I've got here, let me explain what we got here. I've got, apartment. You come in through the foyer, okay?
So it's a French apartment.
Well, it's a foyer. And a large
Yeah,
foyer.
sure.
Most people, this foyer is the size of most people's bedrooms in apartments.
Can I say one thing about foyers? I'm a New Yorker. I was born there. We call it foyer.
Foyers. Okay, foyers. Anyway. But on the right-hand side is a big living room with a fireplace. Okay. Then you walk through a door and there's a dining room and another large fireplace. Okay. Now you go to the right, there's a big, beautiful kitchen. It's gigantic. Okay. It's not small. And then we have a pantry, and then we have a half bathroom. Then we have a hallway, and as you go down the hallway, on one side is a huge bedroom, okay? And then if you go further down the hallway, we have a fairly large guest room. And then if you then take a turn and go straight ahead, there's a bathroom, and if you go in the door on the left, here we are in the studio.
So I've got a picture of your apartment behind me. So which one is the studio?
It's the one with the blue awning.
Okay.
So it's 2,500 square feet.
Yeah.
And as you say, $4,200, that was a pretty good deal,
Yeah.
all the way around. So what turned out is that the guy then said, well, I want you to leave when your lease is over in August. And I said to him, well, I don't know if we're going to leave. I'm going to check this out because I don't know if I need to leave yet. And we expected renewal. In renting, I would say, wouldn't you agree that renewal, if you're a good tenant, you pay the rent, you're not a problem in the complex, renewal is assured.
If the guy who rented it to you moves back in to his own place. So if he was going to move back
but
in,
you see, we never signed a sublet agreement. What we signed was a lease agreement for 3 years.
I understand. In San Francisco,
Yeah.
what happens is a lot of landlords will use, in order to raise the rent, because there is rent control issues.
Yeah.
And they're different than your rent control issues. But
Yeah.
so what happens is you get the market rent might be $5,000 for this one bedroom, but there's somebody in there paying $3,000. So what the landlord does is he says, look, I'm moving my brother in there. And you're going to have to move out in 30 days. Your lease is up. And supposedly the brother's living there, but what often happens is...
I don't even want to get into that. I'll tell you
They
why.
re-rent it. They re-rent it for market
because
rent.
what they're doing here in New York, that'd probably be somewhat illegal. But anyway,
I'm sure it's illegal here.
yeah. What we were involved in was a case where we were charging illusory tenancy, which is somebody doesn't live here, but he kind of pretends to. But anyway. We immediately lawyered up, and we found a lawyer who represented only tenants, and was supposedly the best in the business. And we went to see him, and when we went to see him, there was this little meeting we had, and we told him what had happened, and that we didn't want to move out, but we're just checking to see if there's any way we can stay. And he says, of course you can stay. I said, what do you mean? He says, this is illusory tenancy. What that is when somebody is a tenant, but he's not really a tenant. Right. And he then, in a rent-stabilized apartment, which this was, he then does a sublet and charges all this. Well, anyway, he said, stop sending him your rent for the rest of this time, and we're not going to move, and you're going to stay there, and that was the beginning of the whole thing. Then he sued the landlord, then he sued us, and this happened over 8 years ago.
Wow.
Over 8 years ago. Now, there was one thing that happened in that time, and that was COVID, and that kind of held it off for about a year. Okay. But we finally went back to court. And what was at stake was whether we were going to be able to stay here in this apartment, and if we could make a deal to do it and whatever. So the trial begins. I got to tell you, don't ever go on trial.
Right.
And I'll tell you why. You don't want to go on trial because of a very simple fact. It's boring as shit. I mean, they were saying stuff in this courtroom I didn't even begin to understand. They have made the law so complicated that I'm surprised they can even interpret it. You know?
What did you say, squatter?
No. No. You know, I mean, we weren't. Look, we were sitting here going for 8 years. We were saying, somebody just give us a lease in our name at a rent stabilized price, and we'll be happy to start paying. But right now we don't have a lease, and secondly, we don't know what the rent stabilized price is, and lastly, who do we send the check to? The guy who was in the apartment? We send it to the landlord? Who do we send it to? So it was really very. So we didn't pay rent for 8.5 years.
Yeah, that's not bad, New York.
It's not bad. That's good rent, but there was $100,000 worth of lawyers' fees.
Yeah.
Over that period of time.
Did you ever do the math? What's 4,200 times 8.5 years?
Well, we figured that out. 4,200. What do you mean?
4,200 a month.
Well, you can't really figure that because we had to go by what would have been the rent stabilized price.
Yeah, no. If
I did that, yeah, we figured it would be like $800 a month.
No. But if everything stayed the same, and he was able to rent you the apartment for 4,200, and he never raised your rent in the entire 8.5 year period.
Well, wait a minute, I got an adding machine here. Let me bring my little adding machine up here. I could just put it right. I put it right in front of my face here. I'll put it between us. Let's see. How many months would you say that is?
What's 8.5 times 12?
Well, 12. 8.5 times 12. Well, I'll tell you what we can do. We can go 8.5 times 12 times 4,200.
Right.
Okay, and equals. Yeah. That would be $428,000.
Okay, so $428,000, and you spent 100 in attorneys, and any deal on the rest of it?
No. Well, we have to go on with the story here. So anyway,
so far I think you're 300,000 ahead.
Well, if you figure that we paid 100,000 in lawyers' fees, and then you take the 100,000 and you divide that by all that time, it comes out to somewhere about $800 a month.
Yeah.
Okay.
You rented one of those tents behind me.
Yeah, $800 a month. But we didn't pay any rent at all because who do we pay it to? Just solve this thing. So, like, there are 3 parties here, but the 2 of them are really the ones that are fighting each other, and we're sitting over like the bastard child on the bench waiting for mommy and daddy to get divorced, and we often scratched our heads and said, why are we in this thing to begin with? It makes little or no sense to us. We didn't do anything wrong, we didn't steal from anybody. We're just trying to do our best and get along with everybody. Anyway, so this thing goes on and on and on. Finally, we go to court this week. And on the first day, it's like everybody is intractable. Just, Yeah. My lawyer does some kind of magic, which I can't even begin to explain to you. But he pretty well got everybody. This is where I suddenly realized I had a good lawyer. I didn't know what he was doing. But he had there was some guy on the stand from the landlords. And so he said, well, I want to do a voir dire or whatever they call it. And he then asked some questions of the guy and started really attacking him. And I'm looking at his assistant saying, what's he doing? These are my landlords. You don't want to piss them off, right? And he just went after this guy. What this did was this made him the big guy in the courtroom. And we left, and of course, what we offered was an offer to the guy who rented us the apartment. And I did this begrudgingly because I didn't want to pay him a penny. But my lawyer said, if you pay him, we'll get out of this, okay? So he said the deal was he takes $75,000. He gives up all claim to the apartment, and the landlord then gives us a lease at a rent-stabilized price. Okay?
Very nice.
Well, except for the $75,000, I'd rather have that because I could buy myself quite a few hookers with that. But anyway, it intractable. No, absolutely nothing. Well, after we left the courtroom and after he had done his magic there in his performing, he gets a call from the guy that we were willing to give the $75,000 to, and his lawyer says, we're willing to agree to that.
You know why? Because his fee was 75 grand.
The reason was that actually, and then the landlord's people agreed to it, and they agreed to it because they wanted to get my lawyer out of the courtroom, basically.
Yeah, because think about it.
Because he was
the guy that rented you the apartment.
Yeah.
Had paid his attorney. I bet you his attorney's fee was 75 G's, and that's why that was the settlement.
That's what we offered. Okay, that was our offer.
It was probably a move on your attorney's because he probably calculated that the guy would take 75 G's to be paid on this.
Well, I don't know whatever's between he and his lawyer. Anyway, the point is, my lawyer he got it to a point where they all wanted him. They wanted that they didn't want him there. Okay, he was just too good. All right.
Well, if they didn't want him there, what did he do? Take lessons from me on your show?
Yeah. So anyway, the deal we got is we're writing out a check in a couple of weeks for $75,000, and the landlord has agreed that we have the apartment at the rent stabilized price, which is a certain price right now, but it could go down because there's some question about what the rent stabilized price is for this apartment.
So if they go back to when it was actually registered and stabilized, and then add in each period,
you can't do that because what happened was there are too many laws. Laws change constantly. And one of the laws that changed is they had to go back to maybe 2003 when the rent here was $501, okay, and then incrementally bring it up to date. But because of laws that have passed since, you can only go back 4 years. So the rent stabilized price on this apartment, I don't know if I should. Well, it's not like we made a deal on how much this apartment was worth. We're paying what is the rent stabilized price. This is what the government says this apartment should be rented out for. So how much do you think my rent's going to be every month?
$4,200. I think it's probably going to be $2,500.
Less.
Really?
Yeah, I won't say what, but less. Not about a couple hundred less. Okay. Less than I was paying for my apartment downtown, my 1-bedroom apartment. Wow. So anyway, that's what the
how much did you pay for the one near Washington Square? It was like 6th Street. Was by a cheese store.
What?
The one that I visited you in, that you were with Naomi.
Oh, that was down. That was on 14th Street.
That was 14th Street.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. In those days, I think that was like $300 a month or something.
Wow.
Back in the day. All right, but anyway, I got to say there's a couple of things that I got to say. Number one, I do. The guy who we were fighting, who rented us the apartment, after it was all over, came up to us and said, he said, I really wanted that apartment, but if I didn't get it, I'm glad you did.
Wow.
And very much a gentleman about it, and he has to come get some of his stuff that's here, that's left, and that's about it. And the landlords, I wish I could say they were a bunch of assholes, but they were, they in court. When it came to coming to a deal, they came to we're very happy with the deal. We're very happy with the price, and it's a 2-year lease, but all leases under, rent stabilization, you have to renew after 2 years. They can raise the rent slightly, but,
The interesting thing is they're getting now close to what they used to get from the guy you rented from.
Oh,
So-
yeah.
So to them, the win is they're collecting the rent. They got somebody legally living there,
Mm-hmm.
and and it's unfortunate that I would imagine he's on the hook for $200,000. Wouldn't he be? In the
Who?
rent that he owed them.
Well, yeah, they're suing him for the rent he owes them.
Right.
It's going to be. I'm. We're all out of it now. We don't have to go back. But in a way, there's part of me that would like to be there to see the rest of this trial.
Yeah.
Because it was interesting. But the fact was that yesterday, when this whole thing was over, Marjorie and I walked out of the courtroom. We both just looked at each other and had a sigh of relief.
Yeah, I would have.
After all this time, 8
Right.
and 8 years and change to
Yeah,
go through this.
Takes a toll. This
Yeah,
takes
yeah,
a
yeah.
toll mentally and physically on people.
Yeah, and
I
and I said, we can finally join the Tenants Association. I mean, and Marjorie today said to me, "Oh, well, don't tell this story on the air. Don't tell it on the air." And I said, "Why?" They said, "Well, it isn't finished. We haven't gotten the lease, and we haven't sent the money to the guy." And I said, "Look, it's set in stone. You had all parties swear to a judge that we agreed with the deal. Asked everybody down the line, you agree with the deal? You agree with the deal? You agree with the deal? Okay, then I say that's the deal. This is a judgment." So, I said, Marjorie, they can't. They got to give it to us, and the guy has got to release us when we pay him. So it's really, in a way, if you say, did we win? Well, we have to pay out a large amount of money. But on the other hand, I'd say we won.
Yeah.
We certainly didn't lose because we're sleeping here tonight in an apartment. This is ours now.
Now, you mean that the guy that was suing you actually wanted the apartment and wanted to go back there?
Well, that's what he claims.
Oh.
For the sake of argument. I don't know whether he did or he didn't, but he has a house up in Westchester, and I don't really think he wants to live in Harlem if he doesn't have to.
Yeah.
He certainly wouldn't ever rent it out again, that's for damn sure. But what we're doing starting tomorrow, we're looking for a subtenant if anybody's interested. No.
Extra bedroom.
We're just we're delighted with the fact, as you get to be our age, you kind of become nesters.
Yeah.
And
Especially for the last year and a half, that you got all this practice being inside.
yeah, right. But I mean, we're nesters, and I thought that my biggest horror was we'd have to move out of here. And how do I move all this stuff? If you just saw what's in this studio, to have to move that, would be. Huh?
Just leave it. Let the next guy worry about it.
That's what we probably would have done, most of it. I mean, it would be too much. And I told the judge, in fact, when we had a little meeting, I said, if we had to move, I said, I'm 81 going on 82. I said, I think it would kill me. I think it would literally kill me to have to go through that. I mean, the fact this whole process of this legal thing hasn't been good for my health. That's for damn sure.
Now, did this affect your ability to rent another apartment if you would have lost this thing and had to move? You go on a sort of a shit list.
No, because we were suing. It was a different kind of action.
Yeah.
If a landlord sued us, that would be another story. Yeah, you can get put on a shit list. Yeah, but even finding an apartment in Manhattan. I mean, you got to realize if I moved out of here tomorrow, to find an apartment at this price,
Yeah.
be impossible.
You could rent an empty restaurant or an empty retail store a lot easier right now.
Probably, or an office in an office building.
Really,
you know.
nobody's going to those.
Yeah, but I mean, it really is I mean, I'm very happy with it from the standpoint that I think that the price certainly is something we can absolutely afford, and in fact, it's cheaper than what I was paying downtown. And it's 2,500 square feet. I mean, come on,
I think
if people thought it was a steal when I wasn't paying rent, it's still a steal, kind of,
Yeah, his world.
But if somebody found this apartment and it were being rent stabilized, and they didn't do anything to it and they just rented it out, they would rent it out for this price. So it would be a real find for somebody. But it's just that somehow we got grandfathered into this thing or whatever. But I really have to say nothing but nice things about the guy who lived here. I said it's very nice after 8.5 years to look over a table now and not have to scowl at you.
What was his? What was in it for him if he didn't fight and just gave up the apartment and said, "Hey, you talk to these guys"?
I have no idea. You would have to ask him that question.
It just doesn't make sense.
His claim is he was robbed all those years by the landlord because he did what was he saying? He claims that they were overcharging him, and that he really is owed a lot of money back.
So he was similar thing to what you kind of claimed
of him. Yeah. And so far as the landlords are concerned, I wish as I said, I could say something bad about them, because after all, they are landlords.
Yeah.
And we all have learned in our lives to hate the landlord.
Hate the man. You got to hate the man.
But these guys haven't done anything wrong by us yet. I mean, now we're their tenants, so that changes everything. But they were very, very good, very nice, and we were being sued with them. So we were kind of co-defendants in this thing. So.
Is there any chance they could turn that building into not co-op, but condos?
Yeah, absolutely. But I don't think they will. Not in my lifetime.
And if they do, they usually buy you out.
Well, what happens is if you are rent stabilized, you're allowed to buy at what they call an insider's price, which is considerably cheaper. And of course, if that came along, if we had to go borrow it from a bank, I mean, we would absolutely do it.
Well, I don't think you've ever used your VA loan, and
no, I haven't.
You get it with no money down.
Yeah.
No money down.
Yeah, but but all I'm saying is, I think that I don't know if they ever would plan on turning this thing, having it go condo. There's a lot they have to do, the landlords and so on. They have to fix stuff, and Marjorie went through it with the place that she has. So I mean, anyway, it all we're very happy. This is something that's been that we've been just.
I'm very happy.
It's been making us feel terrible over the years, and we're glad it's over. Hey, listen. You want
from your.
Yeah, you want to stick around and just bring me some of these people in here?
All right. What do you got?
Well, let me see here. I got to get all these other people here. Let me also
Give her my
do
name
this. Let me
while
see
you're at it.
here. Wait a minute. I just said admit all. Go ahead. Admit all. Okay. Are you? There we go. There we go. We have Alan and we have Josh Wheeler, and in Australia we have we used to call him Doc. What was the name we gave you? Or you gave
Winters.
Doc Winters. And we always thought he was like maybe a male nurse or something like that. But you weren't, right?
When we used to talk, I was.
Oh, you were? Okay. And now he just sits down there in Australia and has fun in Australia.
Hey, Ross.
Hey, Phil.
How you doing? Did the toilets really go backwards in Australia?
Yes, they do.
The Corleone?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I don't spend that much paying attention to the flushing of the toilet. But
You will as you get older.
if south of the equator, the
Coriolis effect. Yeah.
the water goes down the drain in the other direction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like Mar-a-Lago.
What did he say? I don't think we can hear him.
Who?
Alan,
Yeah, why not? I can hear you.
Yeah, turn your volume off.
Off.
Yeah, Donald Trump visits and everything goes backwards.
Yeah. Hello, Josh. How you doing?
Well, good. How are you?
Yeah, and of course Jeff is here. Hi, Jeff. How are you? Yeah.
You're muted, Jeff.
You're muted, Jeff. Unmute. There you go.
No, you're muted again. There you go.
Hey, congratulations.
Yeah.
Oh,
thank
Ross,
you.
Now you went through hell on this thing.
It's been. I got to tell you. I mean, every night I go to sleep before when my head hit the pillow, all I could think about was this case, and that was not. It was not fun. And in the last couple of days, Marjorie was going to sleep and having nightmares every night about this.
Kevin, you got your audio coming through.
Hey, congratulations.
Yeah.
Oh,
there we go. He turned it off. But
it wasn't Jeff.
It wasn't Jeff. No.
Wasn't it?
But no, it just it played heavily on us. I mean, you know what it is. As I say, at our age we're nesters, but belying that is the fact that it's nice to have a feeling that where you live, this is your apartment. You're renting it, and it's kind of yours. It's your home. And I never felt that for the last 8.5 years. I felt it was my place. I came home to, and it was nice that I had a place to rest my head like this. But I didn't feel it wasn't sitting here and going, wow,
Alex, were you ever worried they were going to change the locks?
No, I was never worried in the whole 8 years. And again, this is why I have nothing but nice things to say about the landlords. I didn't hear from them once, except in court where we were dealing with this together. But otherwise, nobody ever came by and knocked on the door and said, "Are you moving out? We don't want you in here." This whole place was in contention, so they were. And so far as fixing stuff, all I had to do was call the super, and the super came up and fixed it. So
Yeah.
I have no enmity towards the landlord at all, and towards this guy we kind of made up at the last moment. It was like, okay, it's all over now. We can shake hands, and we shook hands, and then I realized he had a cold.
Can he get free tickets for the Knicks?
No, don't. Let's not get into that. Okay.
I don't know what team he's with.
He's not with any team.
I know, but
He was a long time ago.
well,
Yeah.
they get tickets.
It's amazing how time passes and you don't realize how much has passed. But he said, "Oh, do you have my TV set?" There's a big 50-inch TV set he had up on the wall. But it was so old that it only was 720p, and it didn't have an HDMI input That's how old it was. And he said, "Gee, that set's almost brand new." We said, "Hey, listen, it's not brand new. It's but please, I've saved it for you. I didn't want to throw it out because I didn't want to have you say to me, 'Where's my TV set?' So it's there, ready and waiting for you.
Probably wasn't happy about that. Now he's got to pick it up. He wasn't happy about that. Now he's got to pick it up.
Yeah.
All he wanted to do was say, "Hey, look, you owe me $4,000 for a TV."
Well, he let us have the washer and dryer, and there's some.
You spent $1,000 to fix?
Yeah. I told him we spent $1,000 to fix that, and if we hadn't fixed it, you just have a piece of junk. Okay. Yeah. And he said, "Okay, keep it." Okay. And then he was talking about the fans we had in the kitchen, and we said, "Well, no, yeah, can we buy those from you?" And we made a deal that we're probably gonna buy some of the stuff from him. And give the money to a charity that he.
Wait a minute. A fan, if it's permanently installed, is part of the
I
apartment.
believe so. I believe you're right. There was something else, and we said we wanted it, and he said, okay, well, how much? We said we'll give $100 to your charity for that. And then when he talks about the other stuff, we'll probably offer him. He wants his air conditioners back, 2 of which we don't use. So. Yeah. That's okay with us, if he wants them back. But if I'm willing to give him $100 for all the air conditioners, it's not like these are new.
Yeah.
This was what it was. He said he put in the refrigerator and the stove, and we said we'd give him $100 to his charity if he'd let us just keep the refrigerator and the stove. Although we plan on getting rid of the refrigerator and the stove. It's time for those. All these things you got to realize when he first put the stuff in here, it's 2003.
So tell him to pick up the refrigerator and the stove, and this way you don't have to pay to dump it.
Well, any place you buy a refrigerator from, they'll haul the old one away for you. Yeah. For a couple of bucks, they'll haul it away. So
yeah, that's why I'm saying your money ahead if he takes it.
Well, yeah, but then I'm sitting there without a refrigerator.
No. Push it out in the hallway.
Yeah, but anyway, so we're working it all out slowly but surely, and we don't use the air conditioners in the what do you call it, the dining room and the living room. When it gets too hot, we just never even go out there. Yeah. So
well, if you use them, you wouldn't be able to use anything else in the apartment, right?
Yeah. There's an electric problem here, which I've got. See, there are things I wanted them to attend to, but I really have the rights to say we really got to do something about this, and now I can. And one of them is the electric in this apartment. Yeah. It's just every time I take a pee, we blow a fuse in the basement.
That's because you keep peeing on the circuit breaker.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and you got to realize this building. Right, is 120 years old.
Wow.
So if the
it was almost new when you were born.
Yep. When the electricity was put in here, it was put in, I think, in 1920. Electricity all these apartments had gas lighting.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Okay. So if you think about that, any electrical system that was put in, was an afterthought. So.
Yeah, knob and tube and very limited amount of amps.
Yeah, yeah.
Ben Franklin on the first floor?
What? What'd you say?
Wasn't Ben Franklin on the first floor?
Yeah, he was on the first floor.
And he's arguing with Thomas Jefferson on the floor above.
The only problem, though, we've never been able to get fixed, and everybody else has the same problem who's on the 8th floor. Our water pressure is just horrible.
You can get a pump that you put on a sink, and what it does is it pumps up water and puts it sort of in a reservoir, so you get the pressure.
Really? What's it called? Do you know?
I'll ask the guy that told me about it, because I needed one on my 5th floor in my old house.
Yeah.
Boost.
And
Boost.
What did you say? There's a name for it, Kevin?
Booster pump or booster reservoir, yeah.
Yeah.
Pressure pressure storage container or something like that?
Well, not so much a container as it's a pump, and it just goes under the sink.
Yeah, but
and what it does is
I thought it
brings-
was a penis pump.
yeah, right.
The recirc valve. That's a recirc.
Yeah.
But you gotta have something bigger than that for an apartment building.
Well, he doesn't need it for the whole building. He just needs it for his apartment.
Right. Just our apartment.
Yeah, but you gotta have the initial pressure.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you'd have low pressure, but
Pressure drop. There's a natural pressure drop when it goes up.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
so
actually,
that-
it's the cold water. It's the cold water that's weak. The hot water is strong. And the
Because
hot-
it expands as it rises.
Well, no, I think the reason is the cold water, for some reason, is coming from the hot water is coming from the basement, and I guess it's.
Probably where the water heater's at.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
he's got steam heat in his.
But I
place.
think the cold water comes from the roof.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
So you would think that you'd have great pressure.
I mean,
That's
this
the-
is.
Well, this building probably has galvanized plumbing, and it corrodes and rusts from the inside,
Yeah.
and it slows the pressure and volume down.
Kinda
as
like
it gets
my
older.
It's
Yeah.
like my arteries.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But I mean, it's a great old building, and we love the building, and we love the apartment, and we're just so happy we're going to get to stay here. And I thank everybody involved. My lawyer was magnificent. I mean, to watch him work, I didn't know what he was doing. I thought he was hurting our case, and he was helping our case. You can't tell in a courtroom what your lawyer is actually doing, But he's just, leave me alone. Don't worry, I'll take care of it. All right, and he did. The next day we came in, and we're told. You know how I found out? The landlord, not the lawyer for the landlord, but the landlord came over to me and said, they're going to make a deal with you today, and we're going to give you a lease at blah blah blah. There's so much and blah blah blah, and you'll come out to Brooklyn and we'll sign it, okay? And I'm going, what? I don't know. My lawyer hasn't even told me they made a deal yet, and yet I find out from the landlord. So we found out that if we were willing to accept the deal of giving him this money, we'd settle the whole thing. And I'm telling you, we figure that between the money we're paying him and the money we paid our lawyers over the last 8.5 years, we've paid about I think $1,800 a month rent. Okay, so that, we came out okay.
Why they're called sharks.
Oh,
My lawyers are called sharks.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you.
They're in the bloody water for a while, and then all of a sudden they go, okay, it's all over.
Yeah,
Move
well,
on.
the thing is, this I see the value of having paid for a good lawyer. All right, because we're still here.
Yep.
If we had a mediocre lawyer, they'd just figure out some kind of deal where we had to move out in 6 months, or something like that. It was wonderful. This lawyer was the best, and the team he has. We had 2 lawyers in the courtroom with us yesterday, and the day before. In fact, throughout the whole trial, we always had 2 lawyers. Everybody else only had 1. So but what gets me is that, and Josh would probably be have an opinion on this, is what it costs for the average human being to go into a court of law. You know how people say, "Don't do that to me, or I'm going to sue you." Well, go ahead, have a good time, okay? But just the fact that they sue you, I mean, the fact that this guy was suing us meant we had to get somebody to defend us. And then
Never get anybody to take a contingency either.
I don't want to pay a contingency, and I'll tell you why. Because that's what you get. I mean, they're going to work hard to try and make enough money for themselves, but you haven't got the best lawyer you could lay your hands on, because a really good lawyer won't take a contingency.
Yeah.
He goes to work, he wants to get paid for it, as well he should. So
what a difference a week makes. Last week you were bitching about all the money you spent on this lawyer and you didn't like him and all that.
No, I didn't say I didn't like him. I said that I had problems with things that were going on, but I always liked the lawyer. I don't think, if I implied that, I certainly didn't want to imply that. but just that I was unhappy with the way things were going, and but he turned out to be the best possible lawyer I could have laid my hands on. The guy is an artist, all right, and he was doing things that I went, what the fuck is he doing that for? Wow, no, come on, you're hurting my case, and he just said, leave,
Didn't he tell you
stay
he
cool.
had Tourette's? Didn't he tell you he had Tourette's?
No. But I mean, he really. No, I don't think I implied that last week, Alan. That wasn't what I was trying to say. What I was saying is that you just wonder after all this time, you're going to get any resolution, and the fact that we were going into court to do a whole court thing, but it even got that far. It should have never gotten that far. But at every place along the way, he didn't try to prolong it, Plus, in most cases, I didn't have him as a lawyer physically. I had other lawyers from his office. Finally, the lawyer that I did have from his office, who was very good, left, and I didn't know what to expect with this guy. And he turned out to be what I saw in the last 2 days in the courtroom. Showed me the artistry of a good lawyer,
Oh, do you know what the bill's going to be for the last couple days of court appearance?
To tell you the truth, he knew that we were upset that the price was getting higher and higher and higher and higher, and that we'd paid $100,000 already. He says, "I know you paid $100,000 already." He said, "I have my assistant." He said, "He bills out at $3.25 an hour. You will only have to pay him. You don't have to pay me. I'll do the rest of the case for free."
No.
For
2/3.
Yeah, well, yeah. I think he knew he was going to be out of there after 2 days. He wanted to get out of there. So
2/3.
yeah. So
always 2/3.
I think maybe it'll cost us another $4,000 maybe for the last couple of days in lawyers' fees at the most. So I'm very happy. It really came out positive outcome, and Alan loves to put words in my mouth, but I don't believe I said that last week about him. I was just saying I don't know what's going on here. It's just very frustrating, and and I, as I say, I watched this guy go to work and do stuff that even I was being shocked watching, because you're attacking my landlord. Oh my God, I got to live with these guys if I win this case. And as it turned out, he got nothing but respect for doing it,
Just wondering, what did he say to the landlord's representative that...
Well, it was a whole bunch of stuff about you say that this thing said that you did this and you did that, and it was just questioning what was there, pieces of proof that they had that certain work had been done, and that my lawyer said, well, when was this signed? And he was attacking him and really nailing him, and doing the work really for the other side of the landlord. I mean, he was making the other side a case for the other side. Right. And I'm going, what is he doing that for? But I found out the next day the reason he was doing that is all the parties involved did not want my lawyer in that case anymore. And it was a masterful thing to see. The lawyers for the guy who was suing us, they certainly didn't want him to continue any longer, and perhaps then take their client and put him on the stand and do the same thing he did to this guy from the landlord. And it was just that he got the respect of everybody there, plus the fear of everybody there as well, which it was masterful. It was like it was like a ballet.
Well, you got 43 people that like to hear your story of woe.
Really? Whoa. But anyway, in the end, I want to say my lawyer was just. I mean, I walked away just absolutely in awe of him. You
Well,
know?
now that this is over, what else are you going to have to talk about?
Well, I didn't talk that much about this,
Well,
mainly because while it was going on, how do you talk about it? You're going to get, I could only screw myself over, So I didn't really talk about it much. I let everybody know it was happening, and that I was not happy with how long it was taking, I mean, come on, 8.5 years? Somebody can commit murder, go on trial, and be convicted in less time than that.
And be out of jail.
Yeah.
And executed.
And either executed or get out on parole.
Right.
I mean, 8.5 years is ridiculous. Just ridiculous.
Yeah.
And then we had the first part of the trial on Wednesday was just a hearing to see if everybody could come to terms with each other. And the judge gave an opinion of what maybe he felt should be done in the various scenarios, and then we meet with the lawyer, we meet with the judge, and that's where we decided we'd be willing to give up some money if we just wanted it to go. They kind of wanted to get us out of the case.
You were done, I mean.
Well, I mean, we should never have been in it in the first place. But it's now an easier case for the two parties,
right,
to go at each other than to have this third party over here that's sitting there licking their balls in the corner.
And they can't sue you again, right? This is...
No, it's over.
Over.
It's absolutely over. The judge deemed here's my order then, blah, 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 and the landlord agrees to give you this for this, and he agrees to take so much money and release himself from the apartment, So
no appeals for these guys.
No appeals. Not on this. Now, when they go at each other, it may come out one way or another, and I think I don't care which way it's going to come out. These guys are going to appeal. And you know what you don't want to do? You don't want to go to appeal.
Yeah.
Because if you go to appeal, that's a really expensive process.
Yeah.
And maybe you'll win on appeal. But, by the time you're through, you got no money left anyway.
Right. And if you're in the apartment, you got possession and you're paying rent and you got a lease, what's he going to appeal? He's going to appeal how much he owes the guy.
Yeah. Well, but he's going to appeal. If somebody's going to lose, okay, and somebody, I'm sure, they were already talking about it in the courtroom, are going to appeal. So this thing for them could go on for another 10 years, and it's ridiculous. All it is a rental deal, okay? Yeah. It's not like a major case that's going to go down in the annals of legal jurisprudence.
So it becomes a pissing match.
It's a very expensive pissing match. It's over for us, and I thank everybody involved for, at least where we were concerned, coming to their senses, and the landlord for being very cooperative and immediately giving us the proper deal, the proper rent for rent-stabilized apartment, without arguing about it. And the guy who sued us, I have to say only nice things about him in the end, because he did come up and congratulate us and said, I really would have loved the apartment, but if I couldn't have it, I'm happy that you have it.
So this wasn't the Stockholm syndrome, right?
No.
That you like him now.
No, I liked the guy initially.
Yeah.
As I told him, I said, it's really nice for a change to be able to talk to you without looking over a table and scowling at you and having you scowl back.
Yeah.
Because we were enemies at that point. Once it was over, we went back to that relationship we had before the whole thing started, which was a very amiable, relationship. So, what, Alan? Yeah.
So the news flash is the House passed the bill and it's going on to Biden.
It's only $1 billion now, right?
It's less than that. It's $500 million.
Really?
I mean, well, it's 550 billion.
Well, is that the infrastructure thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's only he wanted 1.7 trillion, and he ended up with 550 billion.
Didn't the Republicans agree to a bigger deal than that?
Yeah, but the Republicans actually voted. It didn't go along party lines. So the Republicans voted. Some of them voted yes.
I
Because
think
they want infrastructure.
19 is what it's supposed to be.
Well, what's wrong with the goddamn Democrats? I mean, they hate Biden. What's the story here? I don't get it. I just stopped. I stopped watching the news
We
altogether.
got Munchkin in there that stalls the thing all the time.
Hey, why don't you, ask the people of Virginia what's wrong with the Democrats? They'll tell you.
I don't think the Virginia thing is an indication of anything. What it's an indication of is Terry McAuliffe was governor of that state for 2 terms, and people don't like people to have a dynasty going, you know?
One term.
Was it 1 term? Yeah. And then he came back and went for another term. You know, I looked at McAuliffe and I said, what a lousy candidate.
He was.
You know?
He had it in the bag until he shot himself in the foot. What he did was he said that parents have no say, should have no say in the education of their children, and that
I agree.
Yeah. Well, I don't agree.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's
why
certainly the people who are in charge of figuring out how your kid should be taught are better experts at that. Parents don't know what their kids need in school. They have no idea. Well, wait a minute. Hold on a second. Let me go to Brian Neary. He's a father. He's got kids in school. Do you think you know better than the teachers on how to teach your kids?
That's a bad question. So, because I mean, you know how kids these guys have homework and stuff like that, and I see the homework and I'm like, why they teach you the stuff you'll never use it in life. Obviously, I think there's a lot of stuff that we think they should be taught, but not the curriculum, like history and all that stuff. But I want them to know some other classes, other types of common sense stuff, like getting jobs and stuff like that, other than some of the stuff they're being taught. But I don't want to be there and say, no, they should know this about history and this about history.
What do you want them to take classes on repairing the McLaren?
Something like that, washing and waxing.
Oh, there you go, washing.
Yeah, but I just think that what the problem was here is that they're saying we want to have say so over what our kids are taught. Well, I'm sorry, that's not how schools work. They
didn't agree with what the kids were being taught. Critical race theory for one.
The kids weren't being taught critical race theory. That's a fucking lie.
That's the only thing they're bitching about.
According to these parents who were sitting in on those Zoom classes.
That's the only thing. That's the only thing they were. You're right.
That's the only thing they're bitching about.
It was enough.
What is? Somebody please define critical race theory to me.
What is that?
It's I'm good and you're bad. And you're
bullshit. That is not critical race.
That's not what I understand.
Because you're white, and you're bad because you were born that way.
That is not what is taught. And it's not being taught in any kindergarten to 12th grade class anywhere in the whole fucking country.
It's no different than the evolution argument from before.
Very good. Very good.
Yeah. It's no different. It's just a different.
Evolution was right, and critical race theory.
Oh, here we go. Here we go.
You don't even know. You can't even define it. Define what critical race theory is.
Define critical race theory. Charlie wants you to define it.
Just another argument. It's just another argument.
I did. I gave you an example.
I gave you one.
You remember when people were getting down on their hands and knees and washing the feet of minorities? You remember that? Well, that's just
nobody's being taught to do that in class.
What does that have to do with what we're talking about, Phil?
It has a lot to do with what you're talking about. It's the attitude, and what they're doing is they're saying that what you're doing because of the way you were born, you're wrong, and you should be ashamed of yourself.
That is not critical race theory.
You tell me.
All right, hold on a second. Phil, hold on.
Okay, let Charlie tell me what he thinks.
Charlie, what's critical race theory?
We give you a textbook?
Critical race theory is taught as a graduate level class to law students. It is not taught in grade school. Nobody's teaching grade school kids to hate themselves because they're white.
Correct.
Don't think that that's right, because there's a lot of parents that are saying that that's not the case. Is this a
Those are
conspiracy?
fucking racists that are making shit up.
Is it a conspiracy? So now it's racist. You know, so don't you think that the other way around is racist?
Well, wait a minute. Hold on a second. To begin with, Charlie is saying that it is not taught in high schools. It is taught only in colleges and universities.
Correct.
Not even college and graduate school. It's taught the lawyer, and it's an elective. It's not even, you don't have to take it.
In other words, what they're doing is they're bringing up. Well, let me try and Kevin, you can correct me on this, but what they're doing is they're bringing up critical race theory as a straw dog, basically, that it doesn't exist in these schools, and it only exists in colleges and universities, and that's where
up in the college. I haven't heard of anything in the high school level.
Mm-hmm.
And all I've heard is it's college, and it's been discussed in the college level. It's definitely not in the elementary level.
Ignorance.
I don't understand where this is coming from. People are thinking that it's going to go to that level, but it's not. And people are paranoid that it's going to go to that level, and it's not.
I think it's ignorant to say that your argument is that you never heard that it was.
Okay, let's just say that I haven't heard it because my daughter is in that system. Sorry.
Well,
my bad.
Parents who are in that
system. My daughter doesn't go to school all through the country, but my system, between here and the Bay Area, okay, that's a general area.
Let me ask you this, Phil. You had two daughters. Were they ever taught critical race theory?
They're 80 years old now.
It wasn't invented then.
It wasn't invented by the Republicans then. Yes, Jack.
Good to be here. Hey, Phil, you define critical race theory for me as a black man. Ball, your court, I got something to come back with you.
Hey, because I am white,
Prove it.
I rest my case.
Now, for the prejudice and the problems that you and your people have encountered over the last couple of centuries.
All right. Now, the question is, historically, who did it to us black people?
Dutch.
No. Every European country, with the exception of Lithuania, had something to do with the stealing and hijacking of black people from Africa. I'm sorry.
Who stole those slaves in Africa to the Dutch trade?
Hold on a second, both of you. Ross, Manuel.
Yes.
You had your hand raised.
Yeah. I was just gonna ask, did someone explain to the Australian what you guys are talking about? And then I realized what actually critical race theory means. I'm finally figured it out. Because I'd never heard of critical race theory before hearing it in the United States, and I didn't realize what it was. And I realized, and you and I don't really have an idea about it. Now, again, this is based on what I've just Googled, so correct me if I'm wrong.
Google those all.
Particularly Jack, and particularly Craig wrong. But it's focusing on how race equates to inequality, or is it relating to how historical events put upon minority groups have resulted in current situations?
It has to do with power. Who has power, who maintains power, who gets power, and how they get it. Now, Phil Meyer, you brought up that canard about black people being sold into slavery by other black people, just like the British did with Brits, just like the Irish did with Irish.
Oh, it's another because they did it and these guys did it, then it's okay, or that makes it any better.
No, but I'm saying it's part of American history.
Yeah, but it was the Brits.
It's part of American history.
It was the Dutch.
Oh, so that's what they're referring to. Okay. I get it now.
See, what's
I get it
interesting
now.
is the guy in Australia has a hard time comprehending it because they never even brought that up in Australia.
Yeah.
Okay.
For Alex, I will counter that. We actually do have critical race theory in Australia, but it's relating to how there is social, health, and economic inequalities with our Indigenous population, and brought on by 275 years of institutional racism from government and health agencies. And how we look at it is how can we then bridge the gap. So there's a economic policy that we have. It's called closing the gap. It basically means trying to improve the financial inequalities, the health inequalities, the employment inequalities of our Indigenous population, who are on average 40 years dying 40 years sooner than our other populations. They don't have the access to the financial advantages that non-Indigenous people do. They have worse health outcomes, they have worse financial outcomes, and how we can fix that by tailoring things specifically to them.
So it sounds like you've made a tremendous step forward that we in this country have not done. Now, to clarify something for Phil Meyer, just because I've been black for over 70 years, forgive me, Phil.
I didn't notice. I didn't notice.
Oh, don't worry. I didn't notice you either. Now, look, the history of slavery on this planet usually is that, yes, people with more power enslave other people. In Africa, tradition there was my tribe attacks your tribe. If I win, I enslave your people. Now, where it gets squirrely in this country, unlike anywhere, well, let me put it this way, on this hemisphere where it gets squirrely.
Get to the point.
I'm getting there. Pray with me. Where it gets squirrely is the concept of slave for life.
Look, I watched a movie, and I had no idea the theme of this movie was actually going on in real life. It was called Hotel Rwanda.
Yes.
And I saw what one group of people did to another group of people, even though they were married.
That's called civil wars in various countries.
Well, that's in this country.
At the risk of this turning into the Phil and Jack show, I just want to throw this out to the whole group. Is not critical race theory a Republican construct?
Oh, yeah.
You know, I never heard that term until the Republicans brought it up.
Yeah, neither did I.
And so therefore, if it is a construct by a group of people, can't we kind of argue that it's a myth and that it doesn't really exist?
News.
Conspiracy, right?
That it doesn't exist. Because everybody, quite a few people here have said that it does not exist in high schools. It doesn't exist in grade schools. It does exist in colleges and universities.
So therefore,
yes, our friend from Australia.
In that case, Alex, it wasn't so much that critical race theory doesn't exist, but more the teaching of it at an elementary school level doesn't exist. Because I'm seeing sources back from like the 1980s where, like, the O.J. Simpson case was a factor of critical race theory. Like Johnny Cochran used it in his defense.
Yeah.
I thought it was the glove.
But I think the term critical race theory I haven't heard until recently.
Yeah, it was 1994 when that first gained popularity.
Yeah. Patrick. I'm trying to get to some of the people who haven't been talking. Patrick.
No, it's not a Republican flashpoint or whatever you want to call it. Critical race theory is a body of legal scholarship and academic movement of civil rights scholars and activists who seek to examine the intersection of race and law in the United States and to challenge mainstream American approaches to racial justice. And it originated in the 1970s and through the 80s. So it's not anything new, and it was started by civil rights lawyers and that sort of thing in academia. So this isn't Republican crap. It's not Trump stuff. It's real. It's taught It's just debated on where it's taught. That's all I have to say on it.
That's what the Republican crap is. A Republican crap is complaining that it's being taught in grade school and high school.
It's
That's
a dog
Republican
whistle.
crap.
It's a dog whistle to get Republican voters out to vote.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good point.
And it's a good dog whistle. I'm not opposed to you using it. Just admit that you use it, and let's be bold with each other about
No,
it.
but you can't, Jack. Be reasonable. You can't admit that because you want people to believe it, not to think it's something you're telling them because you want them to vote for you.
And it's also, if you're against it, it's acknowledging that you believe that racism isn't bad.
Well, first of all, racism in this country is as American as a Chevrolet V8 and an apple pie.
Right.
You know, I tell the story of my dad, who was, for his time, a rather successful man. And he got upset when some folks who were white from Oklahoma moved across the street from us in an integrated neighborhood. And he said to my mother, and I swear to you this is true, he said, Ruby, there goes the neighborhood because that guy's from Oklahoma and drives a pickup. We can all be bigots.
Yeah. But, you know, I mean, I just, as I say, I never heard the term until just recently, you know.
Yeah, and they even interviewed people at the schools where they were protesting, and they said, do you realize that it's not taught here? And they said, yeah, but we just don't want it taught anywhere.
I never heard that.
Yeah, but by voting for a guy for governor is not going to prevent that, you know. I mean,
No, it's not to allow it to be taught in those schools. Plus, he's going to give parents the ability to choose private schools, vouchers, and
you know why that's done. You know why that's done, Phil?
Yeah, that's done because the unions are too powerful.
No.
Phil,
Phil.
that was done in the South to keep schools segregated.
That's exactly the reason why.
Yep.
Look, schools
Australia has been.
want to go.
Wait a minute. Let Ross talk here. Ross?
I'm going to say that since about 2004, 2005, Australia has been teaching critical race theory in primary school, and so elementary school, as part of our way of addressing the historic abuse, neglect and abuse and atrocities to our Indigenous population. Do we extend it to other minorities? No.
Have other minorities?
Sure. We're as multicultural as the United States is.
I
What we have identified, though, is that this one group is more economically and health and employment disadvantaged than other groups.
Mm-hmm.
Phil, I can prove to you what I'm talking about. I'm going to ask you this question. How big a check would somebody have to write for you to give up being white and European and become black? How big a check?
450,000 to the people that were coming over the border.
That's another lie.
That's another lie.
Yeah.
Besides, if you're in the Southwest, those folks that are coming across the border, they were here before any of us were.
That's correct. That's correct.
We were here before last year. You know.
Beg pardon?
We stole most of this country from other people.
We bought it.
No, we didn't buy it. Try and tell the American, the indigenous population that they were sold. They sold their land. They didn't.
You ought to give your apartment up because the $24 in beads that was paid for Manhattan.
All I'm saying, Phil. Bottom line in the whole thing is that no, you're absolutely wrong. I mean, most of the land in this country was taken in one way or another, away from another group of people.
It was like the mob.
It was like the mob. Yeah.
Phil,
Okay, Phil, calm down, Phil. Calm down, Phil.
Waterfront property.
I'd like to see some other people talk here, like Kevin, and if Jeff wants to say something, go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, I want to just say one thing. I know a lot of black people. I know, you can hear that, right?
Yeah.
I know a lot of black people who are friends, and they have kids, and they're growing up. And you know what? Their kids can speak and articulate much better than their parents can.
Yeah.
And you know what? Every year they get better and smarter and well educated, more, and when you talk to
that's also because they have been given this opportunity finally. Up until now, the idea was don't let them learn, don't let them read books. I mean, when they were slaves, couldn't read books at all. Yes.
Why didn't it work on Alan?
What?
Why didn't it work on Alan? He's not getting better every year, and he can't read.
I see. Okay. Any comments, Josh? You've been quiet tonight, and we always respect your opinion.
I mean, CRT, if you will, it's not a huge concern of mine. Listen, I mean, I have 2 graduate degrees in the field of history. I've looked into it for a lot longer than even the time that I was in college, okay? So it was a pursuit of mine even before it was a formal education. I follow probably all the leading historians that you can think of on social media. I've attended dozens and dozens of book talks and lectures, and I've watched hundreds more. And CRT is not something that historians talk about. It just isn't. I mean, historians did not start to talk about CRT until maybe 16, 18 months ago was about the first time that I saw it spoken about in those terms, because it was beginning to be bounced around by politicians on, different sides of the playing field. So I'm sure that what you'd have to understand is that it would encompass many different things, and certain elements of that are probably taught here and there at different levels, but not out of some pushed down, master plan or something. It's just because those elements now exist because the majority, probably the vast majority of historians have come to accept that as the interpretation of our history. So, for example, I think most historians, basically all would agree that even still now, blacks in America are still catching up because for an enormously long period of time, there was racism that existed, and a lot of it was institutionalized, okay? They couldn't simply go to the courts and have their wrongs made right because even the courts were racist, or they couldn't run to a police officer and report something and get help because even the police officer was, that's accepted, fact, if you will, or whatever. But nothing of outside of that generally agreed stuff is being taught to people in the 3rd grade or anything.
How this whole discussion started was that we were talking about the Virginia election, and I think the only thing that lost the Virginia election was the fact that what's his name, the Democrat, just did a terrible.
Election just had people who are a member of that party look at someone like the person that they ran in that state, and even I say,
well, Terry McAuliffe. I looked at Terry McAuliffe. I looked at Terry McAuliffe, and I heard Terry McAuliffe, and I said he's going to lose. He's going to lose.
And you would be, I shouldn't say you would be surprised, but you would be open-minded to know people like Phil or them. Listen, I know people that are historians, very well known, Pulitzer Prize winners, etc., who are, I'm going to say, they're not voting for Trump, they're not voting for Republicans or whatever, and I've seen some of them call CRT stupid.
Well, to me, CRT used to mean a television tube.
Yeah.
I've seen a few of them, say that they think it's, stupid. The argument, not just the argument about it, but they're like, we don't need, to be looking at it that way. And I guess lastly, I would just say, even if it was taught, even if critical race theory was 100% taught everywhere and you didn't want it to be taught, okay, that's fine. But I would like for you to remember that it's called a theory. So if we're actually teaching our children to think critically and understand, then they should be smart enough to know that this is a theory. Something that is a theory is not taught as fact.
Well, the only argument against that I would have with you is for years that same argument was used about Darwin and the theory of existence, of evolution. So, you know, it's a slippery slope there. Yes, quickly,
right,
Jack.
But my point is we should be free to teach any theory in broad terms so that people can get
absolutely
a large view of the world.
Quickly, Jack, because he's got to go do a show.
I got to go do a show here in a minute. You know the mistake that Black America did with this? We let the general populace know what black people were talking about amongst ourselves. All of the stuff that you're hearing, I heard when I was 6, 7, 8 years old. Nothing new. But we made the mistake of believing.
Well, what were you talking about? Hey, that's a fine-looking white chick over there?
Well, that was one of the things.
Anyway, thank you, Jack. I appreciate it.
Hey, buddy.
Okay.
Catch you in a bit.
He's doing the intersection right after this.
Can I just say, back on the Virginia thing,
that
McAuliffe was ahead 3 weeks ago. He shot himself in the foot, and you're looking at a state that is a majority. It's a blue state. It's not
I know.
a purple
Look,
state.
but I think McAuliffe lost it. He lost it because he lost it. Okay? You know, I don't think it's a sign that suddenly the rest of the world is going Republican. Although I got to tell you, with the way the Democrats are acting right now, they're asking for their hat to be handed to them.
Look at New Jersey. The guy, Chittarelli, was within a hair's breadth of winning that thing.
But he didn't win.
But he didn't win it.
Well, it doesn't matter. Look how many people voted for him and how many people voted for the incumbent.
Yeah,
he was this close.
There are a certain amount of people who will. Because that proves there are a certain amount of dumb people who will vote for a racist.
He's not a racist.
Oh yeah. Oh yes, he is. Oh, yes, worst kind. Anyway, what?
He was in the assembly, wasn't he?
Let me see here.
So that doesn't make him a racist?
Kevin, did you have something you wanted to say, Kevin? No. Huh? No.
Oh.
How is
this because there are some Democratic mistakes that are being made. Okay, I mean, if Phil's looking for an argument on that, I'm not here to defend him. It's not like it's some binary choice, like people are all of a sudden all against Democrats and they're just all going to vote for Republicans in this big wave. I mean, a lot of people a lot of people don't like Republicans either. I mean,
no, it's not a Republican Democratic thing. They don't.
That's what I'm trying to say. But
they don't like the way the government's being run right now. They don't like the things that are going on. They don't like Biden. Look at his approval rating.
They're about 10 points higher than Trump ran for about 3.5 years. I mean,
it doesn't matter because Trump was being wait a minute, Josh. Trump was being unfairly targeted.
That's enough. No, he wasn't. No, he wasn't. No, he wasn't. No, he wasn't. No, he wasn't.
One statement right there was, they don't like Biden. That's what you're talking about.
Right, but Trump was being unfairly targeted, and we know this now because of the Durham investigation, and we know.
Oh, we do. We do know it. We don't know it, Phil. We don't know. Trump was a fucking crook, Phil.
We know the report.
He was a fucking crook.
We know that
he was a crook.
Was made.
He was a crook. He was a crook. How long do I have to say he was a crook? He is still a crook.
It was true.
And we want to see his ass in jail. Anyway, hey, thank you.
By Hillary Clinton.
And he's coming back.
Don't down a woman whose husband is in the hospital.
Why is it okay?
Right out of the hospital.
Why is it okay for parents to go to the school board meeting and decide they want their children to wear masks, but no, governors can overrule that, but they can also go to a school board meeting and say we want this to be taught, and that's encouraging. Yeah, that's what they should.
Okay, hey, listen, I gotta go. The theme is running, and I'm gonna run out of theme. Phil, thank you for being here this evening. Alan, thanks to you. and I'm trying to put words in my mouth. Josh, thank you. And of course, our old pal from Australia, Ross Manuel. Great to have you here. Always great to have you here. Jeff, thank you. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you. Tony didn't say anything tonight.
I enjoyed myself, though.
Oh, okay, good. Good.
Tony only says things to me on the phone.
Okay. And Brian Neary, thank you for being here this evening. I know you didn't get too much in, but you had enough, okay? Thank you for being here. Charlie, always great to have you here. And you know, Patrick, you're my man, you know. So anyway, everybody give a big wave goodbye, and I'll give a big wave goodbye at you, okay? There they go. That's our citizen panel for tonight, okay? I'm a little bit out of sync, but I won't be once I get rid of the citizen panel here. It'll be a little better. It'll pick up. You know, I hate to be out of sync. It just doesn't look right. Anyway, that's it for tonight. I'm Alex Bennett. We'll see you on Monday for the pop-up show, and then back here again on Wednesday at 10:30 Eastern Daylight Time. In the meantime, Eastern Time. It's winter now. In the meantime, if you see her, tell her I love her, and please, you know, get a vaccination. All right, and if you don't, wear a goddamn mask. See you on Monday with the pop-up show at 4 o'clock. Bye-bye, everybody.